Soul Source is a podcast made by women for women. We talk with a wide variety of experts, ranging from a sex therapist to the CDC and everywhere in between, to bring you the stories you're only going to hear here. Our goal is to entertain and educate, because it's more clear now than ever just how much we as women are doing, as parents, as spouses, employees, just as everything. Don't miss out on being in the know. Subscribe to Soul Source wherever you listen to podcasts today. Leave us a review too, because this part's really important. When you leave those reviews, that's how we're able to continue bringing you the content you love each and every week. So buckle up, Soul Source Society, because we're about to get started.
By demonizing people who have vaginas and making us believe that anything that is somehow not open fields of daisies, roses, Chanel perfume or something like that, then we are bad. And not only are our vaginas bad, then we are bad.
Hello there. I am your host of Soul Source, Raquel Lamel. And ladies, this week's episode, it is all about our vaginas. Now, I'm serious. There's a lot that we don't know about this part of our body, and that's crazy to me, but it's true. And we're going to get into all of the myths, all the things that we should do, all the things we shouldn't be doing, and so much more. I have Dr. Nicole Williams here with me today. Now, you might recognize her name. She's a pretty popular OBGYN. She is the author of a book called This Is How You Vagina. She opened the Gynecology Institute of Chicago in July of 2013. It now has 3 locations and cared for thousands of patients. She has a degree in English literature and biochemistry from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and an MD from Loyola University in Chicago. She's also been featured in a ton of pretty prominent magazines, publications, things like Redbook, Cosmopolitan, BuzzFeed, and Bustle, just to name a few. Dr. Williams, welcome to Soul Source.
Thank you for having me on, Raquel. It is my distinct pleasure.
This is going to be a fun conversation. I think I'm going to learn a lot. It's kind of crazy that this is a part of a woman's body, and there's just so many things that we don't know.
Yes, there is. And guess what? It's not your fault. It is the fault of our educational system. It is the fault of society at large and how we were founded. So there are many things that go into our lack of understanding. It's also our puritanical values that play into why we think that this part of our bodies is always overtly sexual. One of the reasons why I'm not on GMA and the Today Show talking about this particular subject is because I was told by the producers that vaginas aren't morning conversation.
Oh my goodness. And so it's like a taboo topic.
It's a vagina. But yes, it is seen as taboo. And, when I talk to moms, you told me you're a brand new mom, and I try to encourage my new moms when your kids are getting to that age where you talk about what you call your body parts, that you should say, this is a vagina, this is a penis. So then those words don't ever get the chance to become taboo to them. So then this whole new generation is like, yeah, vagina, penis, whatever.
Like, wouldn't that be nice?
Penis. Exactly. So let's hope that we can just do our part, one baby at a time.
So I want to start off with some of the common misconceptions women have when it comes to vaginal health, because I think this is going to be fascinating. So I'm going to open the floor to you on this one. What are some of those?
So some of the biggest misconceptions is that any type of discharge, any fluid that is emanating from the vagina is somehow evil. That is the biggest one I get. The second one is, my odor, my smell has changed a little bit, and what's wrong with that? So let's talk a little bit about the whole fluid coming from the vagina, vaginal discharge.
Doesn't that happen every month?
It happens every day.
Yeah, this is true.
So I talk about this with my patients, like we don't think about all the saliva that our mouths make because we have a mechanism to get rid of it. It's called swallowing. So when you're talking, you're making saliva, you swallow a little bit, you don't think about it. Our vaginas cannot swallow, although we think some can. Some people think they can. They cannot. That's a whole other topic for a whole other day. But a little bit's going to dribble out every single day. And as long as you're well hydrated, it's going to be either yellow, or clear,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit more like egg whites, kind of like that very thin, very viscous, kind of gray kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, because that is your normal vaginal discharge. Now, it might change when you ovulate. It's going to become stickier because that
Mm-hmm.
allows the sperm to stick better. That's what it's
Okay.
for, right? Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And just before or just after your period, it might be a little bit brown, a little bit pink, because that's a little bit of blood mixing into that. And that's okay too.
Okay.
So that's the biggest, that is my number one biggest concern that I see on a regular basis. And I've trained all my staff. Everybody understands how to talk about this, how to approach it, because it's such a concern of our patients. And we want everybody to understand that most of the time it actually really is normal.
That's good to know, because I feel like women, were taught to thought that like nothing's supposed to be coming out of there unless you're on your period. So it's like, oh my God, something's happening.
Exactly. It's a very dynamic organ, and it is responsive. It is just as responsive to its environment as our mouths are, as our rectums are. It's responsive to the environment. So if you give your vagina a healthy environment, you're going to have healthy discharge. If you are living unhealthily, if you are not drinking enough water, if you're doing a lot of over processed foods, like whatever you're putting into your body is going to come out in any place where you're going to have liquid in your sweat, saliva, urine, vaginal discharge, poop, all of these things. So you can help to gauge your normal health, your overall health, through your vaginal health.
So that's the discharge. You also mentioned odor, which I
Yes.
know is something women are worried about all the time.
I
So,
know.
and there's a ton of things out there that claim like, oh, if you use this, like it'll help cut down on this. And I've heard that's all not supposed to be good. I've been told don't put anything up there. So what do women need to know? What should we and shouldn't we do when it comes to that?
All right. So when it comes to odor, well, first of all, you can put stuff in there, vagina, you can put fingers, toys, penises, Benoit balls. Just make sure they all come out when you're done. That's fine. Now, when it comes to odor, I just had to like go with that because I thought that was so cute. You talked about, don't put it, yeah, put stuff in there if you like.
The right stuff, yes.
The right stuff, though, the right stuff. We're not going to go putting, brownies or any, food stuff or things like that. But when it comes to odor, this is going back to our country's founding as basically anti-women.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Salem witch trials. We're talking about women who were midwives, who helped other women who may have needed to not be pregnant. They were burned at the stake. And this is going back to the early 1600s. And this has gone all the way through even to today by demonizing people who have vaginas and making us believe that anything that is somehow not open fields of daisies, roses, Chanel perfume or something like that, then we are bad. And not only are our vaginas bad, then we are bad because we have vaginas.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about what can we do to combat odor, I say just be healthy, wear cotton underpants, avoid thongs or anything that's going to give your vagina what we call an anaerobic environment. Vaginas like oxygen, just like
Mm-hmm.
all the other body parts that we have. We are aerobic organisms. So when we put leggings, thong, or wear a panty liner every day, we are keeping vital oxygen from that organ. And then, of course, there are going to be bacteria in your vagina that we have all the time. They're generally in balance, good and bad. Always a little battle between these two types of bacteria. The healthy bacteria is called lactobacilli. The unhealthy bacteria are myriad, like Mobiluncus, Mycoplasma, Ureaplasma. I could go on and on. But if you're stifling her with an anaerobic environment, then yes, you're going to have a bit of an odor, because those are the bad bacteria that have started to overgrow. Mm-hmm. So how do we keep that bad bacteria in check is by keeping an aerobic environment. These are very, very simple things. I talk in the book about soap, water, and sunshine. Soap, plain old soap. You don't have to pay like the extra female tax that is taxed on everything from deodorant to razors to any product. If you can compare men and women, it's going to be an extra percentage above. So when it comes to deodorant, I buy whatever's cheapest. I don't give a damn if it's made for a man or a woman because it still has the same stuff in it. Razors, oh, why am I going to buy a women's razor when a men's razor is actually cheaper?
Yeah.
Same thing. That is the female tax. So normal soap, water, drink water, use water. Sunshine, that is the maintaining of a healthy and aerobic environment so your vagina can breathe. Like when I sit down, if you can see, I sit like this.
Oh, see, everyone's taught like sit like a lady, which that doesn't count as sitting like a lady. So
And
okay.
didn't we just talk about this whole puritanical values thing? Don't show your snatch, or don't show because, oh my goodness. So I'm comfortable, my vagina is happy. That's why we should sit. We should be the ones manspreading, not men, because their stuff is already out in the, look, they don't need any extra oxygen because it's already out and hanging. We need the extra oxygen, so we should sit comfortably.
Oh my gosh, this is incredible because it's like everything we're taught. I mean, right down to like not just the way you're sitting, but like I can think of so many things like women's clothes are tight fitting, tight jeans, tight nylons, tight leggings, everything is tight. All of the sexy panties are lace and silk and tight, and and then on top of that, I think of too, like women are marketed to with all these pads and period products and things like that to use. And then a lot of that, like panty liners, a lot of women after having a baby have leakage, have issues. So you're saying all of this is not good.
It's unfortunate that we have been taught to stifle our vaginas, because when we stifle our vaginas, we're basically stifling our very selves. But like I said, this goes back to Salem witch trials. This goes back to the exact reverse. So what happened after World War II? So World War II, women were like, oh, okay, we can do it. We got to go and work. But then exactly after World War II, and I'd like to bring in this history as a lit major, so we were made to study history. Women were like, we were told, oh, now we have to go back into the kitchen. And then everything became extra feminized, even down to the TV shows they watched. In my book, this book right here, This Is How You Vagina, there is an ad that I found, and you can actually probably see the same ad. It was in the public domain, so I didn't have to pay for it or anything like that. But it's actually from McCall's magazine from the circa 1947, 1950, early 1950s. And it showed a man, like this woman is sitting looking all forlorn. And the man is like in the background, like walking out looking like this. And it says, why does she spend her evenings alone? It was an ad for Lysol. Guard against daily odor. Guard against, it didn't say odors or anything like that because it was 1950, but like she should have used Lysol. Oh. Then her man would be happy. And
oh my gosh.
So all that being said, it's not our fault that we think this way, because it's been like this. And my goal in writing this book is to help all vagina owners to unlearn this toxic thinking that our vaginas are somehow toxic. There's nothing we need to do to detoxify our vaginas because our vaginas are non-toxic. If it was toxic, it would have killed us all, right?
You would think, yes.
So,
okay, I'm going to definitely get into your book here a little bit later, but I want to ask you some other questions here that I know pop up. And one of them is sexual health. The vagina is, used for sex. So how does that tie into a woman's overall health?
Especially when it comes to, there's a few very key moments for vaginal health when it comes to being female. I'm not even talking about your sexual debut. I'm talking about after you've had a baby and when you're going into menopause.
Okay.
After you've had a baby, I have a lot of patients who are really, really afraid that their vagina won't feel the same. It won't feel the same to them. It won't feel the same to their partners.
I was in that camp. Yeah.
Right. Or it might hurt. And this is when I like to bring in a little bit of European enlightenment. So, they had the Enlightenment, we actually didn't. And in a country like France, for example, you get pelvic floor physical therapy, which teaches you how to strengthen your pelvic floor. So the vagina, as we talked about, you know, we have this kind of like a floor right here of muscle. And that muscle helps to hold everything up, lift the actual vaginal tube with the muscles all around the vagina, and helps to tighten the vagina back to where it was before.
Okay.
Now, if you have like 12-pound baby through your vagina, you know, there's exceptions to every rule. But after you've had your baby, in a country like France, everybody gets pelvic floor PT.
Okay.
In a country like America, we can barely get paid family leave.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
So we really expect to get something that's going to benefit a woman's overall physical and sexual health. Because we, as we all know, everybody, we're sexual creatures. Sex is a very important part of a healthy relationship with your partner, whether it be male, female, or other. And after you've had a kid, then that's such a concern. But in other countries, it's not as much of a concern because they teach you what to do. So what I talk to my patients in the book is things that we can do ourselves at home. And they might include, you might need a Benoit ball. You might need something like, they have these little Kegel exercisers that you can use at home to kind of help to strengthen your own pelvic floor, even though we should have physical therapy paid for with every single baby that comes into this earth through the vagina. But that, like I said, get a little mad about that. So that's one like big thing about, you know, using your vagina as a sexual organ after you had a baby. Then when you're going into menopause, there are some changes that can occur. And this is when I talk in my book about, I hate to say the use it or lose it phenomenon, because even though your estrogen levels do drop in premenopause, perimenopause, and into menopause, it's just like any other muscle.
Okay.
If you don't use that muscle, meaning if you don't either have sex, if you're having sex with a person with a penis, and if there is no person with a penis around, well, they do make these handy dandy dildos that are not very expensive anymore. You don't need batteries necessarily. Some people like batteries, some people don't. Personal preference. But I do advise my patients to get to know their own bodies. Because if you have a dry spell, if you become a widow or something like that, then you're not having sex, but you might want to avoid dryness and discomfort and irritation that could occur with a drop in estrogen. Well, dildos, if not dildos, then keep having sex with your partner on a regular basis. And that can really help to mitigate those adverse vaginal, because everybody's afraid of what's going to happen to their vagina at menopause. But if you're having sex, those things are generally a whole heck of a lot less.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. I'm going to ask you this question too, just because I know, I do know some older people, and they have, there's a thought that like a dildo or something like that is like a dirty thing, right? Yeah.
I know. So this happens to me, and I talk with, because I have a very massive cohort of older women in my practice, thanks to a good mentor of mine who sent me all their patients. And when I try to broach that topic, and it's something you just have to do very sensitively, that it's not a dirty thing. This is to help keep your vagina healthy. Now, I'm not going to be able to convince everybody, but one of the things that I do point out to my older patients is that the physician who wrote the foreword for my book, her name is Dr. M. Joycelyn Elders. She was an Attorney General of the United States of America in the 90s. She was a proponent of masturbation. She is now 86 years old. She got kicked out of the Clinton administration for talking about this very subject. The Clinton administration, the blue dress administration, where there were other sexual things going on besides self-love and self-pleasure in that administration, and she got fired.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I mentioned to them that there was a physician who was well ahead of her time, talking about the importance of this as a part of health, I can change a few hearts and minds. And if I can change a couple hearts and minds, then my job is done.
So let's get into you a little bit. How long have you been working as an OBGYN? Tell us a little bit about your background so we can understand. I want my listeners to know, I mean, you're an experienced person here. This is something you're good at.
Oh God, we don't talk about exactly how long. You can find that on the internet, because there's certain things once you reach a certain age, you know, you just kind of don't want to admit things. So I've been at this for a while, and we'll say anywhere between 15 and 20 years.
What made you want to go into this field?
When I was a medical student, I noticed that the most female friendly of all the professions was OB-GYN. And the men in that profession were the most female oriented. They were self-deprecating because they were in awe of what a female's body can do. Unlike ortho or cardiac or internal medicine or any of the other subspecialties that were primarily kind of like male dominated or surgical oriented. And I really enjoyed surgery, but I just couldn't see myself in such a male dominated profession because I'm a bit of a fighter and I would talk back. I'm not one of those, you know, thank you, sir, may I have another kind of, oh yeah, sure, I can take it. No, I wasn't going to take it. And when I discovered OB, it was female friendly, female oriented, surgical specialty, just primarily featured around helping women. I was like, yeah, this is my spot. And I've been doing it ever since.
Aw, you're doing a lot of really, really big things too within the field. As an OB then, I want to ask you, there's a lot of women who hate going to their gynecologist. And I am one of them. I hate going in for those annual checkups. And I'm always the one that's in the startups and she's like, relax. And I'm like, no. And I hate that. So like, what advice can you give me? How can this become a less stressful experience for women?
Well, first of all, know that, well, you've already had a baby. So you know that your vagina has gone from this big to this big, back down to this big.
Yes. Yeah.
So your vaginal tissue was made to stretch. It can stretch 8, 10, 12 times its normal size to have a baby. So a teeny weeny little speculum that we put in there, think about it like that. Secondarily, it lasts for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, it's 2 minutes in and out. And I talk about a little bit of history. So we used to think that the speculum was invented by a man and that was just torture device. We've actually found very early speculums as far back as Pompeii.
Wow. Okay.
That goes to show that there was curiosity about how everything looked. And the modern speculum was invented by a woman named Marie Bovin. Did I say it right? My French accent is más o menos.
Sounded good to me.
Thank you. Put a French accent on anything. It sounds great. So think about those things and know that, first of all, we're also helping to prevent what used to be the #1 cancer killer of women, cervical cancer. Now it's down so low because we have all this screening. So it's a way to prevent cancer. So if you go and get your pap test, and it's actually not, you don't have to do the chompers every year. It's more like every 3 years, every 5 years now. They've changed some guidelines, unless you had an abnormal and then we leave that up to your doctor. There are a few patients I still screen yearly, but we're preventing cancer. And think about it in those terms. It's 2 minutes. Your vagina is absolutely made to stretch. No big deal there. And we got history. It was a woman who helped us do this, and we're preventing cancer.
Those are all good reasons. I want to ask you, you're talking about stretching, and so it's prompting another question. I'm going to ask it because I know I've heard this one from friends before too, and it's the whole, after you have a baby, things aren't the same, and it's not good for a man. And that, you know, like, I know women who have had these thoughts and they've been worried, like, am I not tight enough?
Oh, Lord. Here.
What can you tell me?
So I have a chapter called Birthing Vaginas.
Because that's what they do.
Yes, exactly. So vaginas in peril, birthing vaginas. So, oh, here we go. And look at what I wrote in there.
Is she ever going to be normal again? Yeah.
And said, oh, wait, there's something I really wanted to actually just quote this verbatim simply because there are, we should put it this way. We shouldn't be concerned with what it feels like for a man because he should be super excited that you decided to have a baby with him. His DNA gets to make it to the next set of people because of you. And who cares if things don't feel the same for him? Is he still going to ejaculate? I will bet your bottom dollar that he will still come. No worry. Yeah. And pair that with our understanding of our pelvic floors and doing our pelvic floor muscle exercises, you should be good. Bottom line, he should be super excited to want to have sex with somebody who gave him a child. Done.
So this is something women should not be stressing about.
I couldn't even come. I was like, he should be like, thank you. That was super amazing. I've seen men like faint in the delivery room, which I absolutely adore. And they should remember that. Like, yeah, she just did this super amazing thing. Be excited.
Be excited. I love it. So one of the other things is, we talked about women not liking going to the OB, but then there's, bringing up questions and things like that. Sometimes that can be awkward. So, you're supposed to be able to talk to your doctor about anything, but it can be sometimes something that, is difficult or women struggle with, just because this is a topic that for many, they do feel taboo about. So it's a two-part question. The first part is there anything that a woman should feel weird bringing up? And then the second piece is, if you don't mind sharing, what is like the weirdest thing that you've ever heard? Can it get any weirder? Does that even exist?
First of all, there is no question that you should not be able to ask your physician. If there is something that you feel weird asking your physician, then you need to find a new physician, because that means you don't feel comfortable enough with that person to bring up anything. I tell my patients, think of me as your plumber and your priest, if that is your particular religious background. Because you should be able to just tell me whatever, because nobody holds back on the plumber because they want their toilet to work.
Right. Yep.
Not that I'm not comparing a vagina to a toilet, but meaning you just want everything to work right. And if you forget something, if you don't mention the fact that there's something that's loose over there in the back of the toilet and the man goes to fix this and it still blows up, then sheesh. So tell me everything. I want to know everything, because that's how we're going to actually get you to your complete health. What's the weirdest thing? The weirdest medical thing I've ever had was a case of endometriosis after a patient had a laparoscopic surgery, which I did not do. So endometriosis is a painful condition where the stuff inside your uterus that's supposed to come out every month, it gets into the pelvis and into the belly. So this patient had periods from her belly button after she had the surgery. That was the weirdest medical thing I'd ever seen.
Oh my goodness.
Now, yeah. And the other weird sexual thing that I did have a patient complain of was like flatulence with intercourse. And what hey, it happens, right? And so actually what we did for her, and you notice I talk about pelvic floor PT a lot, was that, she had gained some weight and her muscles had become weak down there, which resulted in, because that whole muscle group holds everything together, vagina as well as the anus. And so it was loose. Yep. And so we did a round of pelvic floor PT. It took her about like 6 months to get everything like under control. But yeah, that was the strangest thing I'd ever heard.
That's super interesting though. I'm glad it was something that could be fixed. So you talk about the book, and you mentioned it several times throughout our interview here. This is how you vagina. Tell me more about it. What is all in there? What will women find there? How does that book help women?
I wrote This Is How You Vagina as a love letter to my patients, so that if I'm not around, if I'm not there to sit on your shoulder and help you answer some questions, that my voice is there for you. We go through, so that's the book. Hello. I go through different chapters and I explain what's happening with your vagina on a level that includes both science and history. Because I talk about history a lot. If you notice during our conversation, I talk about historical references, because if we don't understand our history, then we're doomed for our future. We need to understand why we think this way. This way we can change it. So we talk about the history of vaginas. We talk about bloody vaginas, birthing vaginas, orgasming vaginas, rejuvenated vaginas. My personal favorite chapter, toys for vaginas. And there I do have a list of very useful toys. And, you know, a way to kind of get to your first toy, and what do you do with your first toy? And I mean, you can figure that out, but, you know, we still have, you know, guidelines.
Oh, yeah.
And we talk about, why do we call it pussy? Like, why do we have like 800,000 different names for a vagina and maybe like 8 for penis? You know, there's like Johnson and Peter. But for us, there is a list.
Holy man.
This isn't even an exhaustive list. My publisher was like, they get the point. But I could have taken up 3 pages with just my research of all the different names, which might include carpet, peach, love canal, honeypot, yoni, minge, vag, camel toe, pussy slit, muff, merkin, cherry, glory hole, cunt, putz, papaya, mound, sperm sucker, snatch, and cunny. That's what's in the book.
That was like a whole page too, just for the people who are listening and not actually watching this on YouTube. That was a whole page of names for the vagina, guys, in a book.
In a book.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's a fun read. It's an informative read. And it's something that I really, really think is going to benefit so many women. It's already benefited so many. I've had patients like, oh my God, I read your book. Thank you so much for writing it.
And I want to ask you too, because, you know, for some people, history, science can be dull topics. I'm talking to you about this right now, and you're very conversational. You're very fun to talk to. Does that come through in the book?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I wrote every single word in this book. I didn't pay somebody $30,000 because I don't have $30,000 to write it for me or anything. It was me, a laptop, several bottles of anywhere between a Chianti or Merlot, a Cabernet, and the pandemic. And that's how I was able to write this book. And because it was supposed to be a pamphlet.
That's a very big pamphlet.
I didn't mean to keep writing. But one time I was like, oh my God, well, I was going to write just like 12 pages, like, and give it to every patient, like, oh, here, take this home with you, read the whole thing. But then once I started researching and writing, like, oh my God, I need to talk about this. I need to talk about that. Oh, this is super important. My patient had a question about this. I really should talk about that. And that's how it ended up being. It's, you know, if you look at it, it's not like this. Oh my God. I've seen some vagina books like this thick, like, you know, several inches thick, like Harry Potter, like number 7 thick, where it's like an encyclopedia.
Yeah, this is not that.
Not an encyclopedia. I didn't mean it to be an encyclopedia. I meant it to be a volume that you could very easily digest. That's really fun to read and you want to share with your friends.
Awesome. So if people want to find that book, where do they find it? How can they get a hold of it?
A couple of different ways. So you can actually just go to the website for the book, which is thisishowyouvagina.com. It's available on Amazon, where we're an Amazon bestseller. Yay. And also, if you have your favorite independent bookstore, and I've been talking about this a lot, if there's an independent bookstore anywhere near you, ask for the book, go in there, buy the book from them and support an independent bookstore.
Awesome. And then last but not least, getting a hold of you personally, if people want to actually like come in, see you, work with you, or have questions for you, how can they find you, Dr. Williams?
So my office is Gynecology Institute of Chicago, and we're at gynecologyinstitute.com. My Instagram is at Dr. Nicole, Nicole, life, like this is my life, Dr. Nicole's life. And the IG for the practice is at Gynecology Institute.
Perfect. I'm going to have those links in our show notes here for Soul Source. So people can definitely go in there, check you out, find the book, find you. Thank you for sharing this with me and talking to me. I love how very candid and open and just honest you were about everything. This is a conversation that women need to have and need to know about.
I think so too. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening. And if you want to hear more Soul Source, just subscribe to our show. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can watch us too. We're on YouTube. Just look for Soul Source. Soul Source is brought to you by Red Shoes, Inc., a leading agency specializing in crisis and strategic communications, media relations, social media, and so much more. To learn more about Soul Source and Red Shoes, visit us at redshoesinc.com.